Hello, everybody. I am Aaron Bach. I am the host of today's Journals Out Loud episode. Happy to be here with you. And also in the studio, our panel, we have Shira, we have Jabbar, we have Tara. And in the studio, we've got Drew, Thomas, and Matt. It is a fairly packed house here. I'm going to dive straight into something a little less happy than our theme song, though. We obviously just suffered a horrible tragedy in Las Vegas with the horrific shooting that occurred. And I know that Tara wanted to share a few words on that briefly.
Yeah, I was just saying that, like, when I wanted to know exactly what happened. So I watched the videos and I saw when it was like the shots were going on and people didn't know what it was at first. And then like Jason went off the stage and then still people didn't know. And then right after everyone kind of understood, there was like a lot of men trying to protect everyone kind of around them. There's like a good like 10, 12 in certain sections, just like making sure everyone's huddled down. It was like, even in a time of crisis, there were some people that were really trying to help. And it was like, that's beautiful that we have people still like that. But then also we have these people who are getting all these weapons to hurt us. And it's like, why are they in the world right now?
Yeah. And, you know, I think that that's a great thing to focus on. Like in times of crisis like this, like our thoughts should really be with these brave people who step up and try to protect people around them who they don't even know necessarily. And the first responders, the people who are driving the ambulance, the fire trucks, the people who are really sticking their lives on the line to protect us. So thank you to everyone out there who's doing that. Speaking to that second issue, yeah, that's something that we've been seeing a lot of in this country, especially a lot of people with weapons that they shouldn't have, guns that they shouldn't have. And it seems like a problem that is insurmountable, but we faced it so many times before and nothing's really changed. But I want you to know that things can change, things do change, but you need to take control of the system, which is on your own, not necessarily something you can do, but that's why you have friends, that's why you have family, that's why you have communities, that's why you have local government, that's why you can talk to your representatives. Even if you can't vote, you can still make a difference, you can still make a change. Some people say, oh, this is not a gun control issue because the guns he used were already illegal, but who do you think sold him those weapons? Someone who probably sold legal weapons or legal weapons illegally.
And Aaron, to add to that, I just posted this Facebook status and Twitter, blah, 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 that was saying, you know, I went to Walmart not too long ago and they have a gun section, you know, full of rifles, full of pistols, and I asked him, like, hey, can I buy a gun just to see what they will say?
Sure.
He's like, yeah, of course. A little background check, and you know you're good to go. Any gun you want. And I was just like, you know, a month prior to this, I went to the car dealership, and they denied me a car because I didn't have established credit.
Right.
It's so easy to buy a gun, but I can't buy a car. And I said, that's a problem that we have in this country. And, you know, we have like you said, we have so many incidents. We had Sandy Hook. Oh, yes. We had all the Baptist church where the guy went in there and shot everyone up. Yeah. We have the movie theaters that's getting shot up, and we still don't have it, have change. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, I was also reading, I forgot where this guy was from. Was it Australia?
It was Australia where they did the whole entire big band.
And since then, there hasn't been a mass shooting, like America has in a decade.
20 years, I think.
Very long time.
I saw that video, yeah.
So somebody was to that. Somebody said, well, everyone's not America, it doesn't stop anything. Well, then the reply, which I like, was, well, at least try.
Right.
At least try, because, we don't have any type of plan to stop it. So at least try something that another country is doing and see if it works for us or not.
Why do people need guns? I get hunting. I get that because that's what you want to do and everything. But why does everybody else? Why do we have to have guns in America? Oh, because I'm scared that somebody's going to try and shoot me, so I got to shoot them. If that's the only reason, then I don't understand any other reason.
Well, here's the reason. Because it's in the Constitution, according to some people.
Who gives a crap?
Lots of people, and arguably the majority of people in the country care about the Constitution and what it says, but the interpretation of the Constitution is what's really being debated here. It does talk about the right to bear arms, but in what context? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
And, some people say it means that you should be able to buy a gun and that's the end of the story. And some people say that maybe it means more than that, or maybe it means something different. And
it always didn't sit well with me when, some states do have, you can carry, like Florida and stuff. And I remember going to like a restaurant with, my aunt when she was living in Florida, and I see a guy just with his gun right next to him.
Wow.
No police officer. And I think that's just like, wow, this guy went mental. He just got in a big fight with his wife. He can just take out his gun and start shooting all of us.
That's true.
That's how your mindset is when people
Yeah.
have, are so accessible to guns like that.
Which, like the majority of people who have guns are probably never going to do that and would
Yeah,
never do
that's-
that. And
yeah.
that's good, because it means that most of the people with guns aren't crazy. But But that doesn't address the issue, right? The issue is that this is something that we've seen again and again, and it feels like there can't be change, but there can be. It's just got to come from you, and it's got to come from every single one of you. The only reason that things don't change is because people don't act, and people think that someone else will act for them, or that maybe it doesn't matter, or it's not going to happen to me. But, it's happened all over the country. It's happened in California. It's happened in Nevada.
We need to learn why this guy did it. Like, what was the reason?
No, we don't need to know why. And
yeah, so we can prevent other stuff like that from happening. Like,
well, think of it this way. The reason he did it is irrelevant when you realize if all he had was a knife, he maybe would have killed 2 people before he was stopped,
very true.
right? It's
I
not about
understand
why
that
he
too.
did it. It's about making sure other people can't do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And
Get that.
there is a whole other side of it where maybe there was some mental condition he was dealing with, and that's what ultimately spurred him on. That has been the case before in situations like this, but that's a whole other side of it. That's a whole mental health argument, which I am always, and everyone here is absolutely in favor of mental health being a topic that gets talked about, that is normalized. People need to be able to feel comfortable getting the help that they need. And, I really do think if that is what his problem was, it's important for anyone who feels the way he felt to know that it's okay to get the help you need, right? But we, again, don't know why he did it yet. And it doesn't really matter, because even someone who is going through a destructive mental health period, the worst case scenario doesn't have to be, 50 plus people dead. It could be someone gets stabbed, right? I'd rather see that world than a world where it's remotely possible for someone like that to get a weapon like that. So I am almost divorcing those two thoughts as two separate issues. One about him having a weapon in the first place, and one about him getting the mental help that he needs, which everyone should be able to get. So just one quick little note. I'm absolutely not in favor of giving any sort of grandiose moment to these people who commit these acts. I'm not going to mention this person's name. It's irrelevant to the topic. Something horrible happened. There was an act of terrorism, and that's what it is.
I need the media to call it that too. I don't need them to brush it off as if it's not. That's domestic terrorism.
Absolutely.
And they brush it off as, this middle-aged white guy who lives in a, retired home type of community, and that's it. No, that's a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
He committed, a terrorist act.
Absolutely.
And I need the media to call it that.
Well, we're the media. We're part of the media.
Very
and
true.
Just like it's on you to talk to your representative about gun control and mental health issues, it's on us and you to call things as you see them. This was an act of terrorism, and we're not afraid to call it that because it's just the truth. So with all that being said, we are obviously thinking of all the victims, and we hope that you all recover and you are all safe. Moving on to some other problems people are experiencing, not hopefully on the same magnitude, but we're here for you just the same. I've been talking to this guy for a couple months. The other day we were talking and things got kind of sexual, but he randomly said, you, Kate, and me should all hook up at the same time. Kate being a friend of mine. I was mad at him, and he got annoyed that I thought he was being serious. We are talking normally again, but I wonder why he said that in the first place. Do guys usually joke about these things?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay, interesting. All right, so before the guys talk, let's have the girls talk. I want to hear your perspective on this.
No, I'm pretty sure the guy wanted to see what he could say to see what he could get away with, because maybe low-key he does want you. Or, maybe he really doesn't, but I just think he's kind of like seeing like how far can he go with the joke to like test it out. And then the way that she reacted, he's like, oh wait, you're not into me, never mind, just kidding, haha. And so he like kind of pulled it back, like just I think that's like high schooly thing to do, to like get the reaction.
Sure. All right.
I agree. I think not
Thank
just
you.
guys, but like people in general will kind of just like say things to like shock you, see how you're gonna react, especially like since they're kind of like new friends, so they probably don't know each other that well. So he's probably trying to like see like what she's
all
for.
about. Yeah, exactly. You get it.
All right.
Jabbar,
That's the perspective from there. Jabbar, go for it.
do you agree with me?
Was not playing. He wasn't playing at all. He was being very serious. And like you said, he was trying to see if you'll be down for it. And you happen to not be. And then he was like, oh, no, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's obviously wrong to generalize, but speaking from the guy's perspective and having known many other guys and having been a guy all my life, yeah, he was absolutely dead serious, 100%, guaranteed. And
Sorry, Aaron.
he was for sure. And when you questioned him, his response wasn't, "Oh, it's a joke." It was, "I cannot even believe that you thought I was being serious about that."
Mm-hmm.
It was not a joke at any point, but he was being defensive and reeling it back because he was like, "Oh no, I've gone too far. Have I lost all chance with this?" And
Yeah.
you know, there's of course a line here, I think, because maybe he is like really crossing a boundary and not being cool about this, or maybe he's just like, it is more testing the waters. Like he was certainly being serious, but was that because he's like a kind of a lech, or is it because he's really testing boundaries legitimately? Like that could just be part of his lifestyle, I guess.
Right.
What do you think?
Just from a guy's perspective, it was he likes this girl, but I also am free. I'm young. I'm going to try to bring another girl into the situation. So I'm going to see what you think. And because if she would have said yeah, then he would have been like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know.
Ooh. And obviously this is speculation, but like I do have to wonder about Kate. Like, is he also talking to Kate, like
Right.
on the backside?
He's
Like
trying to set it up.
Yeah,
low-key.
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't put too much stock into him as like someone super duper reliable, but we'll see. You know what? We'll see. Next question. Who was up for reading this?
Do you know why I always get mean when I'm depressed? I used to think of myself as happy and kind, but now I'm just angry all the time, and I get so annoyed and irritated. I don't care about anything except for myself. I have a boyfriend I love, but I can't even care about him or his feelings. What should I do?
Tara, go.
I felt exactly like you, and my reasoning was because I really didn't like my boyfriend, and he was the one that was making all of that happen. So dig deep into your relationship real quick, because maybe you could be on that level of like, oh crap, your life sucks, and it's because of that guy.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. That's an interesting. I wouldn't have said that, but like,
No,
I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. Like,
no.
that can
Like,
totally
I'm
be
pretty
true.
sure it's probably not that, but like, it happened to me, and it could possibly be the same thing.
No,
so
it happens.
Homie, like,
It totally
I
happens.
understand.
That totally is a thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because I don't know if any one of us would have said that, but you're right. That is totally an option here.
Sorry.
I think that in my perspective on this, probably this is something that is outside of that context.
Hormonal.
Just true, not even necessarily hormonal. I mean, like, I wouldn't jump to that. I'd say it's what's going on in your life, right? Is
Something's
it a
effing
bad
her over.
boyfriend? Is it something that feels out of your control? Do you feel like you're stuck in a rut? Is it something that is maybe chemical, right? Like, that is totally a valid reason for people to feel depressed, and all reasons are valid, really. So I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking. Anyone who is depressed goes through a variety of mood changes, mood swings. That's just a part of the package. And for you to get mean and to be maybe a little more dismissive of other people's feelings because of what you're going through, not unusual, but it does kind of sound like it's getting in the way of your life. So at this point, maybe it's worth looking into professional help. But, I think you should never be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, like, I do think you should break up she should break up with her boyfriend, because I feel like that's just making like the situation worse. And like it's not good of you as a girlfriend to like know that you have your own issues and to like keep him there without telling it.
Yeah.
Like either break up with him or like discuss it with him. Don't just like keep not saying anything.
Yeah, don't make him suffer for something that you know is like not okay.
Yeah, in all relationships, I always say put your happiness first before anyone else's, and then in a relationship, you build your happiness together. In this case, I don't want to downplay any mental health issue, but say if this person is going through something hard in their life, I mean, I don't know what the issue is, though. But if they are going through something very difficult, your boyfriend can be there as much as possible. But when you start to shut him out completely, you're not putting yourself first. And I think that's what you need to do in order to grow and help yourself.
And that's funny because it could go both ways, couldn't it? Like, pushing him away could be doing yourself a disservice, but also pushing him away could be totally the right thing for you. And we can't tell you that, only you can know that. So it's time to really do some deep thinking and speak to a professional. It can't hurt. It can only help. So that is, I think, our recommendation here at Journals. And if you want your question discussed by us, we have a phone line available. It is open. Just call 888-531-7171 and we're happy to take your call. And don't be afraid to talk to us on Twitter or at the Journals app, which is on the Apple iTunes App Store. Next up.
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. I'm 16 and have never had a boyfriend. I feel like if I don't get a boyfriend now, then I'm never going to get married and have a happy life. And I just want a boyfriend. I want someone there for me and someone I can always count on. Is that weird? No, absolutely not. Because that was me 6 freaking years ago, right there with you, sister. I never got a boyfriend until like 2 months before I graduated high school. And then that turned into just something. But I'm sorry. I'm like really not giving a care about my ex right now at all.
You never do.
I really never do. But no, it's so common, and I've been running into so many adults who still haven't even had a relationship. So it's not weird at all, and you will have a happy life. You just don't think of it right now because you're 16, and I know exactly what you're saying. So I promise you, like, trust me, you will be fine later on.
It sounds like this person is a hopeless romantic.
Yes.
They just want romance. Being that this girl,
now.
she just never had one. So she is in love with the thought of just being, someone being there, someone she can cater to.
Sweethearts.
Yeah. She's in love with that story.
Yeah.
Until she lives it. And then she's like, It's like, I don't know. I'm just joking. She probably loves it. Loves being in a relationship. I hope you do find love.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you ask, is that weird? No, everyone basically feels that way for the most part. Like, I'd say 99% of humanity feels that way. It is so universal and core to humanity. I mean, we are a social animal. If we don't have companionship, we are sad. Yeah, that's totally true. And especially when you're 16, you're going through so many different things in your life at that time. And to go through it alone is especially hard. But there's a danger in getting into a relationship for the sake of getting into a relationship.
Yep.
I mean, like, has anyone here done that before? Okay. Do you want to talk about why that's a bad idea?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's fine. But is it a bad idea?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. You heard it from someone who's lived through it. You don't want to jump into a relationship for the sake of it. No. You want someone who is worth the relationship. Any other thoughts, or ready to move on?
I think we're ready to move on.
All right.
Smooth sailing.
Sure, you want to go?
Yeah. For about a year, I hated this one girl out of jealousy. She was very close to my ex-boyfriend while we were dating. I called her a bitch and a girl that can't keep her hands off him. He defended her and told her what I said about her. Now she hates me. We were friends at one point and she was kind to me. I want to say sorry for what I've done and explain to her that it was out of jealousy. How do I approach her and what do I say?
Exactly what you just said.
Yeah, clarity might help, right? Like, why did you say those things? Maybe she doesn't know, and maybe that's kind of why there's been this residual combativeness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go up. Be honest. You're you're extremely sorry, and you only said it out of spite. You didn't mean anything. So why would somebody be mad at you if you didn't mean something? And you just explain it just like that. No, because jealousy can take over. And you're like, you know what? I learned from that. That's not what I want to be. That's not who I am. And I am so sorry I ever do that. Will you accept my apology? Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But you will feel a heck of a lot better if you just explain.
Jabbar, what you take?
But I always think what comes out of your mouth when you're mad is sometimes, most of the time, what you actually mean, but you won't say it in your natural mind state because it will hurt the other people's feelings. But when you have something to, point your finger at, this is why I hate you. That's normally what your true feelings are, based off like the arguments that I have and arguments that other people have. It's built up things that now I can finally say to you or say it about you to someone else. In this case, you were angry. You were angry that this girl was talking to your ex-boyfriend while you were dating. I mean, I think most people will be if they always touching, always talking to each other. I think that's comes from being in a relationship. You don't want no one in your inner circle. That's you. Like my girlfriend, that's me. She, you, like if you're my girlfriend, I'm yours. That's how it is. I don't want another boy up on you. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. So she probably did mean it in the moment, and she probably still does. Don't be around her man, her ex-boyfriend.
I mean, yeah, I think that you do have a point. Like when people are hurt, when people are angry, they tend to lash out in really raw, real ways. That doesn't mean that it's something that they ever wanted to say or were ever going to say. But in this case, it was, I guess, bad enough to drive a rift between these two girls. And, the boy's not in the picture anymore. So is there hope? I mean, like, that was the conflict. He's gone.
Bye-bye.
She has no one to kind of encroach on anymore, right? So, like, if it sounds like she wants to reconcile. So how does this work? How does this happen?
You just go up and apologize and say you're sorry for what you said. That's all you can do. It's already done. So you just say, I acknowledge what I said and I'm sorry. And then maybe, like I said earlier, maybe she'll say, okay, let's be friends. And, I thank you for coming up to me. I think that would be the mature thing to do, the adult thing to do. So do that.
I wouldn't get your hopes up, though, that she's
No,
going to
I
become friends
know.
with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Don't get your hopes up. 100%. Keep them as low as you can possibly imagine. But that's what will make you feel better because at least you tried something. There's absolutely nothing else you could do. And let's wait 100 years and see if they'll forget about it, but they might just be dead. So it's
Yeah, although, worth a shot. Worth a shot, because if you can be friends with someone as opposed to enemies, it's always worth a shot.
Yeah.
All right, next up, I am constantly feeling resentful of my dad because he is constantly saying things that clash with my beliefs. For example, he's against marriage equality, and it makes me so angry. How can he be so hateful that he can't allow people to have the same rights to marry? I don't know how to handle this. Wow.
This is a good question. It's not even with my grandparents, not my grandparents, my grandma. She is old school, so she doesn't really believe in she accepts it because she does have, I do have some gay family members in my, my family, so she accepts it, but she also doesn't get it. So I always have to constantly talk to her about it, that it's not a choice. It's, just a lot of things that have to go into it. So we always normally turn into an argument, not an argument, but I just try to school her on, certain things that, just aren't, everything turns into biblical matters with it.
Right.
And I always tell her, the Bible is very, I don't want to go into that because that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole other can of worms.
A whole nother story. But,
Well, it's interesting because this is such a topical thing. I think that so many people in our generation are dealing with this all over the country and all over the world. And, it's not even always a big conflict. It could just be a simple misunderstanding. It could just be there's a barrier between, I want to get this, but I don't quite get it, and that's just how I was raised, so I can't quite, my brain doesn't quite reach that point. Some people just are kind of living in that old world, I guess. as well-meaning as they might be. That's not who they are, and that's a shame. And hopefully that's the case here, because that's, I think, maybe the best possible scenario, right? Where someone means well, doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, wants to be on the right side of everything, but doesn't quite understand.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, that's probably not the case, right? Because this is someone who is apparently clearly against gay marriage. That's a pretty direct opinion, right? It's a little different than, oh, is it a choice? I don't know, right? Or, I don't get how someone could feel like a girl or whatever, right? Like, there are people who don't get that and legitimately don't get that and want to get it but don't, right? This is not that, I think. So it's a little difficult, because if it was the other I think it was the other scenario, it would be easier to say, well, they want to be good people. They want to figure this out, and that's their old world, and I'm going to have to live with this, right? And I know that they don't mean anything wrong. But this is a direct kind of, I'm going to take actions that will impede these other people, right? That will impede this other group.
Yeah, like with my grandma, when we get into, I normally don't have a lot of good conversations with her because she respects my opinion on these topics. She respects my opinions on people that I love. Like, I have lots of gay friends. They're some of my best friends, and I have gay family members, like I said. And I think she respects not to throw her hateful opinion onto it, because she knows how much I care about it, and she knows, that she loves me, of course. But with your dad, if you said you constantly saying things that clash with your belief, it's really like, damn, how do you fix that type of relationship when your dad can't even respect you and your opinion on something, even though, he raised you, but, eventually you would think that you're going to venture off to different opinions. Shara?
Yeah, this reminded me of something, because I have like 2 gay dads myself. And when I was like in high school, like there was this one guy who claimed to be like really religious and always be like, your parents are like sinning, you're a sinner. And like he would say like all this like really just like mean stuff to me. And like at first I was like really angry and like telling my parents about it. But then I just like asked him one day, I was like, oh, like how does that like affect you? Like what my parents do, like what my family does. And like he literally like didn't have like a response to that, because it's like it doesn't affect him. Like I wasn't even friends with him. So
nice.
Yeah, it just made me think about
Did that make him stop though?
I mean, roughly. He was like friends with my boyfriend, so like my boyfriend like ex-boyfriend stopped him from like doing that, but that was also like an issue too. But yeah, all got better in the end.
And I think Jabbar, you brought up a good point. Like, your grandma she knows her audience,
right?
She knows you're around, and there's a time to talk about these things and to be very passionate about these things, and it's not when you're there. And that's a level of respect that I think that this person deserves and isn't getting from their dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
So if you cannot come to terms with how your dad feels, and he's not changing, and you shouldn't expect him to change. That's, I think, rule number 1 here. Don't expect change. No. Because if you're lucky, that'll happen, but it'll happen on its own, and it's not going to be from you. So don't even try. The question now remains, will he respect you enough to leave that off the table when you're ready to have a conversation with him about other things, right? Like, is he going to be bringing this up while you're around, or is he going to know his audience? And I think that that's a separate conversation that you probably need to have with your dad. And that's going to be really probably uncomfortable. Maybe see if there's someone else in your family who can maybe prep this conversation, or maybe even go in there with you. How does your mom feel about this? How does your anyone feel about this? Can they kind of back you up? Because it's not supposed to be, you versus them. It's supposed to be, listen, I want to have a relationship with you that doesn't involve me hating you. So if you want that too, here's what we need to work on together. That's probably how you want to frame it. And if you find that that's easier with someone else backing you up, do that. Any other thoughts?
Awesome.
Great. Then move on to the next question.
One of my friends is in an emotional abusive relationship, and although he knows this, he still chooses to stay with them. It's really upsetting to see him suffer. What can I do to help or support him when he's really down? I've tried to tell him that his partner isn't treating him well, but he's adamant about staying.
Wow.
Well, you should find out why he's adamant about staying and like see how that can be like changed, or if like you can try to get him like help or whatever he needs.
So it's really interesting.
I mean, you can't tell somebody who's like, this person's bad for you. They're always going to say no, they're not. Like, they're going to want to find it out on their own. That's how everyone is basically wired. They're going to not listen to what someone says, but actually live through it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't really learn people's lessons for them, right?
yeah.
So that being said,
That's a lesson they got to learn.
there's a difference between learning a lesson and being abused, right? Like, there's a difference between making a mistake and being trapped. So I guess that's the distinction I'm going to have to ask us all to make here, because if it's the first, then yeah, you're right. Like, this is probably a situation where you need to let this person learn on their own, right? And say, oh, well, this person's no good. All my friends are telling me, I even kind of know, I'm going to figure it out. Or this isn't that situation. It's much worse. And this is actually an abusive relationship. And this person feels trapped, that they can't leave, that there isn't an option to get out. And that is so much more complex. That is
Yeah, it's really deep.
And it's really, and also to get even deeper, it's the guy who's being emotionally abused versus the girl. That's really not a topic we talk about often.
It's not
normally
it's not what
always
you
a
think about normally,
Yeah.
Right.
but it happens. Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And that's no less valid. I mean, like,
at all.
yeah, I think that a lot of guys who are in those situations feel that they can't talk about it, or that it would be like
Degrading,
wrong.
yeah.
It would be wrong to admit that this is what was going on in their lives. And sometimes, I guess in some ways, it's sometimes harder for them to get out of something like this. That is, I mean, if that's part of the problem, that is so complex. And I don't know necessarily that there's any one thing that you can do to fix it. And I think it's really important for this person, if they are in an abusive relationship, to understand that there are lots of people all around them who are ready and willing to support them in any and all ways, who are ready to protect them if they have to. I think that hopefully, we're reading too much and that this isn't the scenario, but if it is, it's really important that you make that clear about yourself, but also talk to the community around you, right? Make sure that you're not the only one who knows, because the more people who know about this, the more people can actually step in and do something about it. And ultimately, though, unless things are like really horrifically bad, you may not be able to press a button that fixes things, which is really kind of sad. Stay friends, stay close.
Always.
Keep an eye on
Check
things.
in on your friends, because sometimes you could just go by a long time without talking to your friends and you don't know what they're going through. They can mask that smile that they post on social media so well,
Yeah.
and then turn around and next thing you know, they're in the news or they're in the hospital. But you would never know that. So with this, if you think something's very wrong, keep very close to this person. Keep close to him, because you don't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah. I guess as a question, has anyone been through something like this, or seen anyone that they know go through something like this? Because if not, then we're all very lucky, because it happens all too often. I've kind of seen some stuff like this before, and I guess in the situation that I saw, it was even more complex because there was a kid involved, and what wound up happening, without going into too much detail, was it took a lot of friends, it took a lot of support, and it took a lot of time, and a lot of traveling and staying in people's houses. I mean, it's a complex, difficult thing. It's hard enough to break up with somebody who isn't a complete and total asshole, right? Like, when is that ever easy? And then to ramp it up on a scale where you feel as though this person is your whole life and you are nothing without this person, and that maybe the abuse is warranted even. Like, there's so many things that people go through when they live through an experience like this.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that in a real abusive relationship, like, this is something that they really do feel is beyond their control. And until you give them a foothold in some other direction, they may not feel they have a choice to change things. So be there. And also don't let it all hang on you, because that's just not reasonable. Moving on to the next question.
Okay. My college professor flirted with me and asked me to coffee, and it's made me super uncomfortable. He teaches well. He just does the whole flirting with students thing, which is against the rules at my school. It's against rules
At every school.
Hey, honey. I'm too scared to confront him, and I don't want to cause him to lose his job or anything by reporting him. But I'm not even sure if anyone would even believe me because I'm a young queer woman and he's an old white man in a conservative community. What should I do? Well, honey, be confident and go tell somebody because I'm sorry, he's a 60-year-old man and he's flirting with 20-year-olds in college.
I mean, like, he could be any age, and that's still horribly inappropriate, right? I mean, like, there's this.
Yeah, but that's crazy. How would no one already report? That's just like,
Oh, for sure. I mean, the power imbalance between a student and a professor. I mean, like that can't be a healthy relationship by default. Like, it's just they're living in different circles of life so entirely. The balance of power will never exist until one of them is no longer a professor or a student. So that's before we even take into account age differences, which in this case are probably pretty drastic. Highly likely, yeah. So wow, where do we unpack this?
That's just messed up, dude. He's a weird old man. Like, he needs to go.
Yeah, don't be afraid to talk about this, right? Like, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are or any of that, because the facts are the facts, right? Like, this guy who by every educational standard has no business doing what he's doing, who probably would lose his job if this got out, and who probably deserves to lose his job because of how horrible a practice it is.
We have too many stories, so many stories about this type of situation.
Yes.
Women too. They do that to kids. I mean, kids, to students as well.
Yeah.
And you see the consequences of it. The teacher would get, laid off, or the student will get expelled. So before it escalates to anything quicker, I think you should take action.
Absolutely. I mean, you really think about it, you're not in any way responsible for this guy losing his job because it's what he did that made him lose the job. It's not what you did. It's not what you were going to do, which is what you should do. You should talk about this. You should let people know. He is the one who made himself lose the job. You were just the messenger. He basically guaranteed himself a one-way ticket out of education, and that was his choice. All you did was say, okay.
Here you go.
Yeah. That's really important to remember, because I know you're saying, oh, I don't want him to lose his job. Well, either he wanted to lose his job or he forgot that he could, because that's all he's doing here. He's losing his job when he does this to you or anyone else. And if you don't want this to happen to someone else, then you've got a chance to do something about it. I think that it doesn't matter. Like you were saying, this professor could be any age. This professor could be a guy or a girl. That's not the point. That's not the point at all. And you feel that you're in a conservative community and that who you are will affect your credibility. But like, honestly, any place of higher education has many, many checks and safeguards specifically for stuff like this. They are kind of forced to take any allegation pretty darn seriously. So I wouldn't worry too hard as long as you go through the proper channels. Don't go to him, right? Like, go to someone higher than him. Go to a psychologist on campus, a doctor on campus. Go to any legal enforcement officer on campus. Go to the head of his department. Do whatever it takes to go above him, because they are kind of required to listen to you. And as we said before, you're not responsible for him losing his job. He did that. All right. Are we up for the next question?
Yeah.
All right, great. Go for it.
My boyfriend's parents won't let us be together because they don't like me. We've tried to get them to see how much I care about him and love him, and we've tried to get them to let me come over and talk to them. Nothing seems to work, and they won't let us be together. Any thoughts, advice, comments? So I'm assuming it's, high school still?
Probably.
If you're living under your parents' rules and that's what their rules are, honestly, you can try all you want. Some people are just going to stick to that and there's no changing. And sometimes you really got to think, am I going to be able to? Most likely not, because that's the type of people that they are. And you can't really do anything about it until you're independent on your own, making your own decisions, because that's when you can finally live your life. But when you're staying with them, you're not going to have one.
That's kind of a true point, probably, right? Like, how much can you really deal with when your living scenario is under their roof, right? Like, how much outside of their bounds can you actually go? But before I have my 2 cents, I think you have something on your mind.
Yeah, because I mean, I talked about this when earlier in the year. Mine regarded race. They just didn't want me to. They didn't want their daughter to date me because I was black. And you know, the way we got around that was because you know, we saw each other at school, of course, but she also was in, you know, school activities. So she was in volleyball, she was in sports, and she did painting and stuff like that. So it's always that time to see me during those times. I wasn't invited to her house anytime. I wasn't allowed over to her house. Of course, she can come over to mine, but how do you get out the house? What do you tell your parents? You know, where are you going? So she always had to lie and say she's going to the gym, or she's going to the mall with her friends, or she's going to her friend's house. But then eventually, once you start to realize, I'm such a family guy personally. I love meeting, you know, my girlfriend's parents and family members, and vice versa. And I couldn't deal with that. I like being close with family members. Most moms love me, but in this case, it wasn't like that. So with this is basically, how much can you guys go? How, like, are you willing to take the take that stretch, that risk of lying to your parents, if you really want to be together, lying to your parents and going around them? Or do you just say, I'm underneath their rules, I can't do it?
Right. And I think that, like, looking out that direction is actually a smart idea, because that is absolutely something that happens, right? Where you find someone who you like, but then your family doesn't like them, and ultimately a relationship probably is going to end in one of two ways. You break up or you get married in the long run, right? And let's say this person that you're dating becomes family. That's now a family clash, and it's going to flare up before that point, I promise you. So at what point do you say, this is worth it and I'm going to shove out the rest of my family? Or, this isn't worth it, this is a crazy conflict, and I can't be dating someone who's causing this conflict? Shira?
I feel like it depends on, like, I don't know, like, the parents' like reasoning, kind of. Like, for like your situation, like the race situation, I think definitely, like, you still should have, like, tried, because like that reason is ridiculous. But I think, I don't know, just to see like what the parents' like reasoning is, and if it makes sense, or if there's something that could be changed. I'm not saying like change yourself, but if it's like, oh, like the son doesn't have time and they want him to focus on school, like, see if it's something like that versus like something like your situation.
Right, yeah, I guess it could be like a situational thing, like, we just don't think it's the right time for you to be dating because we think that you need to be focusing on school or whatever else. Like, that's a very different scenario, and that is something that is maybe something you could, like, turn into a conversation, right? Like, okay, well, if you don't feel that I'm ready, or if you don't feel that I have enough time or whatever, then let me show you how you're wrong, or how I can work with you on that, and we can maybe be friends about it. But yeah, if it's about who you're dating, that's a bad sign. Has anyone had to deal with that? I know that you had your story, but anyone else here have anything like that before?
I mean, my ex's family didn't like me, or his mom didn't like me, which was kind of like making everyone not like me as much, because I was taking her precious boy away from her. So it could, I mean, maybe it's like that. Oh, like, people are laughing at me in the studio right now.
No, I'm not laughing.
Like, that's a thing. Mama's boys, whoo, good luck with that. If they don't like you because they're just like, oh, like, this girl is taking over, like, what I am, like, my boy. Like, that's a big thing, and it's real.
Yeah, something that happens. Oh, absolutely it does.
A lot.
And how did that affect your relationship?
Oh, it was terrible. We were the worst together.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was not good.
And that just affected everything, didn't it? Like on,
Yeah.
on every level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of been in that situation before as well. Thankfully, not with people I've dated, their parents, but my parents have definitely been that way a little bit before. And I know exactly what you mean. It gets in every little crevice and every little everything. And it really does find a way to really ruin things. And, you know, you got to make a choice at some point between whether or not you can make it work anyway or whether it's just crazy. Now, I will say this. Sometimes maybe they see something you don't see, right? If they do really dislike this person, maybe it's because they have lived longer than you and they see something that you missed. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening here, but it's really important when people that ostensibly they love you and they want what's best for you and they really are looking out for you, when they say something like, this person is no good, stop, like right now, don't do it. Why are they saying that? You know, if you don't understand their reasoning and you think that it's just, oh, well, they're just being parents. But what if they're actually being parents, right? What if they're actually really looking out for you and they're making a good call? I'm not saying to second guess how you feel. I'm just saying really, really don't be dismissive of this. Whether it's I need to resolve it or I need to listen, give it time and thought. So sit with that for a bit. Last question that we have on today's list, which we're going to drag out. What is a toxic friendship? What counts as a toxic
When your
friendship?
friend is just being very selfish and it's all about them and they're not putting it back on you. So if you have a friend who's not saying like, well, how are you doing this time? Like how, like basically doing the golden rule treat that like treat someone how you want to be treated. If you're treating them very nicely and you're not getting kind of the same in return, that's not a good friendship.
Well, let's start off with what a good friendship is. Like, what is a good friendship to you and you and you? It's a tough question. There's a lot that goes into it, honestly.
Well, yeah, because you can have so many friends.
Sure, but if it's a good friendship, what is like a tent pole? Like, what is something that you really look for in someone who's like a good friend?
Someone who cares about me.
Can we help each other grow?
Yeah, no, those are great. I think that a good friendship is something that ultimately is going to put positivity into your life, right?
Yeah.
Something that's not going to remove positivity from your life, but to add positivity. I mean,
Like knowing someone that's always there for you, like you have someone where it's like if you're feeling down, like you can go to them and you know like 100% they're going to be there for you. It's so amazing to have that type of feeling, and that's a good positivity like to be putting out, because you're just like always trying to stay like as connected with the person, and it's like it's really good to know you're not alone. And so like that's something really good.
I also think like someone that like when you're like hanging out with them, you're not just doing it because you like feel bad for them or feel like you should continue like the friendship. Because I've had friends before that like, well, not friends anymore, but like I would just like go hang out with them because I knew they didn't have a lot of friends. But it's like that's not like a real friendship if you're just doing it because you feel
it's so mean.
no, but like it's like yeah.
like it doesn't start from like a point of shared interest or whatever. It's just
just like you know that you're not really close anymore, but you're kind of just like still hanging out, but it's like not the same, and it's just awkward.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm saying let's like list out what a good friendship is isn't because it's a fun, feel good thing to do. It's because sometimes what helps define something bad is hearing what it should look like, you know? Like I think we've all had good friends, and I think if you can see that experience and compare it to your own, it'll be pretty easy to see whether or not like that person's fitting into that realm of good friendship. But toxic friendships are tricky. I mean, like friendships in general can be tricky if one person's not really feeling it, you know? Like it's pretty difficult to extricate yourself from that situation, I think. Like that's a person who probably has like met your other it's almost like you're dating somebody to an extent, right? Like first off, they may have some of your stuff. Second off, they definitely probably have met some of your other friends, maybe even your family, people who are going to say, where's this person? What's going on? That's all the extra stuff. But even at the core of it, right? Like you have to step back and you have to be like, what's my game plan here? Am I going to tell them I'm not your friend anymore? Am I going to slowly back off until they get the message? Like, have you had to do this before? Have you had to like cut someone off?
Yeah, I kind of had to do something like that. I was like friends with this girl like since like 7th, 6th grade, and like she started dating this guy who we were like mutually friends with, and she was already like a really competitive person, but it just got like out of control, and she tried to like compare her relationship to mine, and it was just like so many other reasons, and like I just like didn't know what to do, and just like didn't like, I mean, it was during the summer, so it was like easy not to like talk to her, but like she would just keep texting me like, let's hang out, and I was just confused, like, oh, should I, cause the drama even though I'm going to college soon, or like I didn't know like if I should be like honest or not. And then eventually she just was like super aggressive and just asking me like, so you don't want to be friends with me anymore, and like all of this stuff, and I was like having my dad like tell me what to write because I didn't know what to say. And I just like explained to her like all of like the issues, and like was trying to be like as like nice about it as I could, and like she just like went crazy and like blocked me on social media and like all of this stuff. So I think sometimes some people are gonna, or actually no one is really gonna like understand if you're telling them like this is like what's wrong with you, because no one likes to hear that. I think just kind of like weighing like how bad the situation is, and if like that friendship is like worth it, or like if you're willing to talk to them about it and fix it, or if you just don't want them in your life at all. Because for me, it was just like I didn't want this person in my life, so it like turned out for the best in the end.
Wow. And I think that's actually a good point, right? Like a lot of the conflict wound up coming from like a mismatch of expectations. Like in her head, best friend still kind of, right? And you were like, nah. And like you had to work really hard until there was that middle point of, all right, fine, maybe it's kind of done. Maybe this person's not feeling that way anymore for real.
Yeah, I think a large part of it was definitely my fault for not like really like explaining what my problems were like because there's been problems for like years before, and I just kind of like brushed it off because like she loves drama, and I didn't want to like cause
Take that
a whole
away.
like cause like a whole like scene. But yeah, so it was kind of just like building and building and building up, and then it just like exploded. But
That's really interesting. Like
Yeah.
that's like you're like giving us an anatomy of a bad friendship, or like the falling apart of a friendship. Like I kind of like that.
yeah,
Like maybe there's steps we can take before a friendship,
Definitely.
before a friendship even becomes toxic.
yeah,
Yeah, like it might feel safe and good to not bring up this thing that's been bothering you for a couple months, but then a couple months later, where are you? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have something.
No, it's just if something's building and building and building and building, you're finally just gonna like.
Yeah, and I think that that's true in relationships and friendships, family relationships, whatever. It's safe and comfortable, and we're told not to be confrontational, I think, for the most part. And I know especially girls are told usually to not be confrontational, but
It's so much
It's-
fun though.
well, and to an extent, right, there is such a thing as healthy confrontation. I think that confrontation has a very negative connotation that it really shouldn't have.
It's being truthful. It's not really being confrontational. It's just being honest.
Right, and obviously honesty has to be paired with like,
The best policy.
well, yes, honesty is the best policy, but honesty has to be paired with integrity and
Yeah, don't be an ass.
yeah, and there has to be a moral side to it. Like you can't just be honest because it is like your ground floor rule and people's feelings don't matter. But it is really important, I think, for everybody, and it's very difficult. And I also have a hard time with it, even though I always try to preach it and always try to say it to myself. But like being honest, and if there's a problem, bringing it up, like when you feel that it's there. Not if you're going crazy about it, not if you're like really angry about it, but like when you can talk about it, bringing it up is really important. And that's true in any relationship, because if you let things sit, as we've said, it festers, it happens again maybe. And you're left thinking, well, I didn't talk about it last time, so I can't talk about it this time, or whatever it is. And eventually you're out of a relationship. You're done.
Yeah.
It's done. And that's why it's really important, no matter how uncomfortable it feels, no matter how much we've been told not to do it, don't be afraid of confrontation. Confrontation is just another form of conversation, right? It doesn't have to be a fight. You can actually just talk about what you need and find out what they need, work together to meet in the middle. It's funny, though, because I think that I've had a couple toxic relationships, like friendships-wise, and I think what I've found has helped me a lot, if it's gotten to that point, is actually taking a step back and pulling off, and then reassessing later on, is this worth revisiting, and then either coming on with a fresh start or like talking about what happened and then going from there. Has anyone like had that situation where like they kind of pulled away and came back together?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. I remember I was actually talking about this like a year ago, and on the show, like kind of like when I first started here. Yeah, I was going through my best friend out here in LA. Like she was just, there was a lot going on in her life. There was like a lot going on in my life. I wasn't in a happy place. Like she wasn't really in a happy place. And one day I just like blew up at her, and then we like blew up like one more time, and we didn't talk for months. Like the friendship was friggin' over. And then out of nowhere, she just like watches one of my Snapchats, and then like I swear it was something like that. Like she saw something of my like, because like I deleted her on my Facebook. I deleted her, like it was delete. And then we just like, I thought one day, I was like, hey, I wonder how Daphne's doing. And then like we just kind of mutually like reached out around the same time, and like we just came back into each other's lives.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But like, I guess my question then is like, it's great that worked out, but did you talk about what happened, or was
yes.
it? You did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did that conversation go?
Well, that's what made us break up. But then when we revisited it, then we understood each other a lot more clearly now that we had like time apart. We really got to understand what the feud, like why it happened. Because if you can just like honestly like reflect on why something happened, you're smooth sailing after that. So with us fighting, that's what made us realize, okay, how can we be friends, and is it worth having the friendship? Yeah, because I still freaking care about you, and I do miss your friendship. So like you really got to just be within your own thoughts.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's a great story, right? It just goes to show like things may be bad, and I know that it's not feeling so good, but like there are ways to deal with situations like this, either whether that's like I'm out, right? Like I'm just done and I'm getting to somewhere better. Maybe it's hashing things out. It's saying, yeah, we've had conflict, we've had differences, but like I value you more than I want to be out of this situation, right? Like that's uncomfortable, but you're important to me. Or maybe it's for the future. Like when you have friends and you've got conflicts, what do you do in that situation? Well, I think we've had a lot of different perspectives on this, and hopefully we've helped you. And hopefully, if any of you out there are experiencing anything like that, we've been of some assistance. Now, we've come to the end of our show, so if you have any questions about friendships, about relationships, about you name it, please download the app Journals Network, Journals Out Loud. Look for us in the App Store if you have an iPhone. If you want to call next time we have a show, number is 888-531-7171. Very happy to have you. Tonight's panel was Shira and Jabbar and Tara. And in the studio we had, again, Drew, Thomas, and Matt. Thank you all so much, you guys. We will catch you next week. Same time, same place.
Mm-hmm.